Most people spend their entire lives chasing wealth, but almost no one stops to ask, what is wealth, really? We think of it as money, numbers in an account, paper in a wallet. But money isn't wealth. It's a story, a shared belief, written in numbers instead of words. And like all stories, it can be rewritten. Throughout history, the same pattern repeats. Empires rise, fortunes bloom, currencies collapse, yet the mechanism behind them never changes. Wealth isn't created when money moves. It's created when value is born, when humans turn imagination into something the world needs. The real question isn't who has the most money. It's who controls the story of money itself. Because those who define value define the world. Once, wealth meant metal, gold, silver, copper, physical things that shimmered under sunlight and made trade tangible. If you held it, you owned it. And for centuries, that simple rule shaped civilization. But even gold has limits. You can't grow it. You can't print it. And when trade expanded beyond borders, people realized gold was too heavy for ambition. So merchants invented a shortcut: paper promises. Certificates that claimed to represent gold locked away in vaults. It was faster, lighter, easier. And for a while, it worked. Until kings and bankers discovered a secret. If people rarely demand their gold, why not issue more paper? It was the moment money detached from matter, and the age of illusionary wealth began. In the 1600s, a London goldsmith made a mistake that would change the world. He realized he could lend more receipts than he had gold, because not everyone came to withdraw it at once. That small deception became the foundation of modern banking. When you deposit $100 in a bank, they don't keep it in a box. They lend most of it out, maybe $90, and keep only a fraction as reserve. That $90 becomes someone else's deposit, which the bank lends again. Within days, your $100 has turned into hundreds circulating in the economy. This is called fractional reserve banking, the magic trick behind every modern boom. It doesn't create gold. It creates confidence, the belief that numbers on a screen equal real value. And as long as that belief holds, the illusion works beautifully. Once money became elastic, humanity exploded forward. Factories rose, railroads spanned continents, and governments financed wars that once seemed impossible. Debt wasn't a burden anymore. It was fuel. Every loan created new money, and every repayment destroyed it again. Economies grew not because of what they had, but because of what they believed they could build. But there was a problem. The system that created prosperity also created dependency. To grow, nations needed more borrowing, more creation, more faith in the story. And like all stories stretched too far, cracks began to show. By the 20th century, the illusion became official. In 1971, President Nixon ended the gold standard, severing the last link between money and matter. From that moment, every dollar, yen, and euro was backed by nothing but trust. Governments could print at will. Banks could lend infinitely, as long as people kept believing the digits meant something. And they did, because life became easier that way. Houses grew larger, cars faster, markets richer. But under the surface, something fundamental changed. Wealth creation was no longer tied to production. It was tied to debt. We had entered the era of financial alchemy, where numbers multiplied faster than reality. And for a while, it felt like perfection, until the illusion began to tremble. When money became infinite, so did ambition. Governments, corporations, and individuals discovered a new kind of wealth, not from producing, but from borrowing. Debt became the oxygen of modern life, invisible, everywhere, essential. But few realized that debt was never neutral. It was a system, one designed to keep wealth flowing upward, from those who needed money to those who created it from thin air. In the decades after World War II, the world rebuilt itself on credit. Nations borrowed to rebuild cities, companies borrowed to expand factories, and families borrowed to buy homes, cars, and dreams. It was a golden age, cheap money, endless growth, and an entire generation taught that tomorrow would always be richer than today. But behind the optimism was a quiet transfer of power, because whoever controls debt controls destiny. Banks realized they no longer needed to wait for deposits. They could create money the moment someone signed a loan agreement, and with every signature, a new dollar was born, a debt to be repaid with interest that didn't yet exist. To pay it, someone else had to borrow. And so the cycle deepened, endless creation feeding endless obligation. The world wasn't running on money anymore. It was running on promises. By the 1980s, this system had matured into something self-reinforcing. Central banks discovered that by lowering interest rates, they could keep economies growing, at least on paper. Every cut in rates encouraged more borrowing, more mortgages, more credit cards, more leverage. When spending slowed, governments injected new money, not from taxes, but from debt monetization, borrowing from their own future citizens. It worked beautifully. For a while, markets soared. Real estate boomed. Politicians were re-elected, and citizens believed prosperity was permanent. But the prosperity was built on sand. Every dollar of new wealth was matched by a dollar of new debt. Real productivity, the creation of tangible goods and services, grew slowly. Financial assets, stocks, bonds, derivatives, exploded exponentially. The world's wealth was multiplying faster than the world itself. As the money supply ballooned, so did inequality, because not everyone had access to newly created money at the same time. The first to receive it, banks, corporations, investors, could spend it before prices adjusted. By the time it reached ordinary workers, the value had already eroded. This is called the Cantillon effect, and it quietly shifted power from labor to capital. In factories, one man produced. In boardrooms, another borrowed. Guess which one got richer? The financial sector grew from a supporting role to the main stage. By the 2000s, finance wasn't serving the economy, it was the economy. Derivatives, futures, credit swaps, new instruments that turned debt itself into a product. Traders no longer needed factories or farms. They could create value out of volatility, profit from prediction, and sell uncertainty as an asset. The modern world had achieved the ultimate trick, making money not from work, but from movement. Governments celebrated growth. GDP soared. Stock markets reached record highs. But for the average person, something felt off. Wages stagnated. Prices climbed. Housing became unattainable. People worked harder, but the dream slipped further away. They weren't lazy. They were late to the money. Every boom required bigger debt to sustain, and every rescue inflated the next bubble. When the housing market crashed in 2008, the truth was laid bare. Wealth wasn't destroyed, it was transferred. Governments bailed out the same institutions that caused the collapse, while citizens paid the price through inflation and austerity. The story of money had evolved again, and this time, it had a new moral. Those who write the rules never lose. Today, the global debt exceeds $300 trillion, more than 3 times the size of the entire world economy. Yet markets still rise, currencies still flow, and politicians still promise that growth will continue. Because it must. The system depends on expansion. If debt stops growing, everything freezes. The modern economy isn't designed to repay, it's designed to roll over. Old debts replaced by new ones, forever. It's not a pyramid scheme. It's worse. It's a treadmill that never stops, and those who can't keep running fall behind. For thousands of years, humanity has mistaken money for wealth. But true wealth has never been paper, digits, or gold. It has always been something far simpler and far rarer. Real wealth is value that endures when illusions fade. It's food that feeds, energy that powers, knowledge that multiplies, and trust, the invisible currency that makes everything else work. When trust disappears, so does money. But when trust thrives, even worthless paper can move mountains. To understand how wealth is really created, we have to go back to the beginning. Before banks, before credit, before governments printed promises. In every tribe, Every village, every early civilization, wealth began as usefulness, a tool that helped someone survive, a service that solved a problem, a skill that improved life for others. When you created something valuable, others traded for it. That was wealth. Money only came later, as a way to measure that value. But over time, we forgot the distinction. We started chasing the measurement instead of the meaning. And so, the story of modern economics became one long misunderstanding, mistaking motion for creation and consumption for prosperity. The global economy today is built on one assumption: that growth can continue forever. Every forecast, every pension plan, every budget depends on it. But the physical world doesn't. Resources are finite. Energy costs rise. And yet the digital economy demands infinite expansion. So, how do you create infinite growth in a finite world? Simple. You make the growth virtual. You inflate asset prices, not productivity. You expand credit, not capacity. You manufacture optimism and call it innovation. The result? A society that looks wealthy on paper, but feels poor in spirit. Endless upgrades, endless subscriptions, endless debt, but few things that truly endure. Wealth that disappears the moment the Wi-Fi goes out. There's another quiet transformation happening. Once, wealth meant ownership of land, homes, gold, factories. Now, wealth means access. You don't own the car, you lease it. You don't own the music, you stream it. You don't own your data, someone else monetizes it. We've traded permanence for convenience and control for comfort. The irony? It's the same trade humanity made when it left gold for paper and paper for credit. Each time, we gained freedom, but lost grounding. And each time, the illusion became stronger. Despite all this complexity, one law of wealth has never changed. Value is born when human creativity meets real need. Every innovation that reshaped the world, electricity, medicine, the internet, began not as money, but as imagination turned useful. Money followed value, not the other way around. When societies forget this, they begin to decay. When speculation replaces creation, when greed replaces purpose, when currency grows faster than contribution, collapse becomes inevitable. Because money may be infinite, but meaning is not. Every financial revolution starts the same way, with broken faith. When people stop trusting institutions, they build new ones. That's why cryptocurrencies, decentralized finance, and digital assets have emerged. Not because people love technology, but because they no longer believe in the old story. They want money that obeys rules instead of rulers. They want value that can't be printed away. They want systems that reward creation, not manipulation. But even that dream carries the same danger. When speculation overtakes purpose, the revolution repeats the cycle it tried to escape. Because the problem isn't the system, it's us.